I'm Sam Roberts of the New York Times. Welcome to the New York Times Close Up. This week we examine some of the visual treasures the New York Times has in its vault, images never published until now, with Unseen, Unpublished Black History from the New York Times photo archives. My Times colleague Darcy Eveleigh explains in a moment. Video journalist Emma Cott learned a lot more than either she or far-right leader Eli Mosley expected. We get a glimpse of a man accustomed to lying to himself as well as others. We'll see a segment of her documentary from nytimes.com. My Times colleagues discuss the issues of the week on The Backstory, and I'll offer some concluding thoughts with Coda. But first, Times consulting photo editor Darcy Eveleigh. She co-authored and edited Unseen with Times reporter Rachel Swarns, Australia Bureau Chief Damien Cave, and former Times senior editor Dana Kennedy, who's now the administrator for the Pulitzer Prizes. Eveleigh, how did this project begin?
Well, it started when a group of senior editors approached me and asked if there was something that we could do to attract young African-American readers to the paper. And one suggestion was, let's take a look and see what the archive has. And so...
And how big is this archive?
Oh, the archive is enormous, Sam. The numbers are a little... unknown at this point, but they estimate that they have somewhere between 8 and 10 million prints in the archive. And this book in particular was done from the negatives collection, and that collection is estimated to be somewhere between 400 and 600 million frames.
Oh my goodness.
It is enormous.
That's incredible.
It's incredible.
So why were these pictures that are so powerful in the book Unseen not printed in the New York Times?
Well, there were many reasons. Some of them being just the amount of materials that we had. A photographer would go out to an event and they would come back with a roll of 36 frames on a roll of film, and there would be space maybe for one picture. And oftentimes that was the reason some things were left behind. We do see some evidence, however, of maybe there was some bias potentially in the editing of the day. And then also the Times put a premium on words, and often pictures were an afterthought. They were used in the print paper if there was space for the image.
It's interesting. We still have a premium on words, I'd say, but use pictures, photographs lavishly, and certainly on the web on nytimes.com we use video and graphics and photographs as well, because there's almost endless room for them. The review in the book review of this book said that for all the glory and redemption promised by the photographs themselves, the hero of this epic is the Times, I guess, A, for having taken the photographs in the first place, and now for publishing Unseen.
When we came up with the idea right away, everybody at the top was very excited about it. They gave us the green light to pursue the project. They gave us the time and the resources to move forward with it, and that was wonderful.
Included in the book is a photograph of a demonstration against the Times.
Yes, the image shows a group that was rather angry with the Times' coverage of themselves and also of African Americans. And a large protest happened out in front of the building. It started off peacefully, soon escalated. There were several arrests. Protesters lit the New York Times trucks on fire. And of course it was right in front of the building, so the staff ran out, took many photographs of it, and the next day an article appeared in the paper, ran in a single column, no photographs.
Well, you can find that photograph along with many others that weren't printed in the book. Also a series by Don Hogan Charles, the first black photographer hired by the Times, about life in Harlem. Fascinating pictures.
Yes, and here's a good example of, say, why some pictures were not published. Don lived in Harlem. He went out for 2 days on a Saturday and Sunday and shot approximately 100 rolls of film, figure 3,600 frames. The Monday paper had about 6 photos at the top of the Metro section, which was a lot of pictures for the time, and the rest got left behind. But the pictures, when I found the sack of, the negative sack with all these images in it, I was blown away, one more beautiful than the next. He wanted to take the time to document his community where he lived and average everyday life, which is something I hadn't seen produced before.
Eveleigh, we can all be subjective about what's a good photograph, what isn't, what makes a news photograph. Looking back at what got in or didn't get in and what the vast pool of pictures was, did we make the right decisions for the most part?
Sometimes we did and sometimes we didn't. And a very good example would be the image of Arthur Ashe. So this was a match out in New Jersey. It was a high-ranking match, and Arthur played a #1 seed player, and he won. And the next day in the paper, 2 photographs appeared, both of the white loser, and no photographs of the black winner. And it leaves us to question why. Hard to think that bias wasn't in play at that. There was space, that wasn't an issue. It wasn't an issue of the film not arriving on time. It was the same photographer, it was the same roll of film. We do question why there were no images of the black winner.
You went through so many thousands and thousands of photographs. The ones that wound up in the book, in a way, are your favorite on one level. Any that you particularly like best or came with a great backstory?
There's one very interesting piece. A photographer by the name of Sam Falk went out to cover the aftermath of the Detroit riots, and Sam again shot many rolls of film. It was a feature that was running in the magazine, and several pictures were published. But in the sack of negatives, I found a roll of film that was marked "destroy," and of course I went right for it.
Of course.
And
like any good journalist.
Like, absolutely. Why did they want to get rid of this? Well, they wanted to get rid of it because it was a mistake. Sam had run the roll of film through the camera twice. It was double exposed. And looking at the image, I found this lovely picture of a family who had lost their home, and it was superimposed over the Bamboo Show Bar, which was a jazz club in which some of the great jazz musicians of all time, Thelonious Monk and so on and so forth, played at this club. So you have this juxtaposition of mistake, forming this spectacularly beautiful picture with so much rich history. And of course, the Times never would have published a mistake photo like that. That was just not what we did. But here it happens to be one of the most beautiful pieces of art we have in the collection. But
it is art, for sure. And as you point out in the book, very quickly, we published an obituary for someone who wasn't dead.
We did. My own another favorite story. So Grady O'Cummings was I believe it was 1969. The New York Times ran his obituary. He tragically died, according to the obit, at the age of 35 from a massive heart attack. Well, that was the last we'd heard of Grady in the New York Times. So we found this lovely picture of him with these children, and what a wonderful story. He was a publisher of his own newspaper. He was reported to be the second African-American man to run for president of the United States, unconfirmed. We don't really have proof of that. He was also a little young for that, but as we were writing the story, we were looking for more information on him, and we came across an article in the Washington Post, I believe, that quoted him, and
a miracle.
It was in the 70s, and so Damien Cave and I, we were, wait a second, he's dead. How could they quote? They had to, somebody fooled them, you know.
And it turned out he fooled us.
Yeah, well, it turns out that he bamboozled the New York Times and faked his death because he was being pursued by the Black Panthers, and he wanted to get away.
Fascinating story, and that is among many of the pictures in this book. Darcy Eveleigh, thank you for joining us. Unseen, Unpublished Black History from the New York Times Photo Archives. It's just been published by Black Dog and Leventhal. And coming up, Times video journalist Emma Cott joins us next. Welcome back. Joining me now, Times reporter and video journalist Emma Cott. She faced a daunting challenge: how to cover a person whose beliefs are abhorrent. Emma did just that with her documentary, Lieutenant of the Alt-Right. You can see it in full on nytimes.com. You and your filmmaking partner, Andrew Michael Ellis, senior producer Mona El Nagar, and executive producer Liz O'Balin learned far more than you expected when you interviewed Eli Mosley. Who is Eli Mosley?
So Eli Mosley, whose real name is Elliot Klein, is a rising leader in the so-called alt-right, which is a very loosely organized, basically the loosely organized white nationalist movement. He was one of the main organizers of the Charlottesville rally, the Unite the Right rally that turned deadly. And after that, he was promoted to be the head of one of the largest organizations in the alt-right called Identity Europa.
Why does he go under a different name?
It's actually pretty common in the alt-right. They say it's for protection for them because having their beliefs is not acceptable in society, so you can't operate as a, regular person in the world and have those ideas. Other people might say it's because they're cowards. It depends on who you talk to.
Let's take a look at the video from nytimes.com.
I never really kind of got anything when I was Elliott Klein until I became Eli Mosley. Eli Mosley was able to find that sense of purpose that I was always looking for.
Yeah, it was a little obnoxious trying to give a speech with, 600 people screaming at you.
To struggle.
However, the audio came in just fine over the internet. And millions of people are going to see what we said. I gave a speech yesterday, and now Twitter has removed my account completely. When you go to tweet, you hit tweet. Your account is currently suspended. For more information, go to twitter.com.
The social media platforms that initially allowed the alt-right to flourish are starting to stifle it. Twitter is cracking down, sporadically, on hate speech, banning some accounts affiliated with white nationalism.
I've been banned maybe 20 times at this point now, and they don't understand. No, you shut us down, we come right back. You shut us down, we come right back. We're not going anywhere. Every time I get an account shut down, I'm making a new one the next day.
Elliott Klein's Army documents arrive. The story they tell is far different from the one he created. Turns out, he never deployed. Not to Iraq, not anywhere. Elliott Klein spent about 6 years in the Pennsylvania National Guard, coming in to train 1 weekend a month and for some weeks over the summers. 2 soldiers from his unit also confirmed that he never deployed. The Army tells me that you did not deploy.
The Army tells you?
Yeah. So, did you go to Iraq?
I was in Kuwait. I told you that before.
You told me you went to Kuwait and then you went to Iraq.
Well, they're basically it's very similar the way it works.
So what were the dates that you were there?
Let me think. Hold on, I'm trying to find out. 2012, I believe, but I gotta look.
Because the last troops left Iraq in the end of 2011. The facts don't seem to matter to Eli. But maybe that's the kind of person who becomes a leader in this movement. The more that people like him come out into the open, the more they reveal the alt-right for what it really is. It's a movement where 30 people with cheap tiki torches can seem like an army in the echo chamber of social media, where white men claim to be the real victims, and where a weekend warrior can pass himself off as a disillusioned veteran of war.
Emma, what was his reaction to your exposing the fact that he lied about military service?
Well, just to clarify, he didn't lie about the service, but he lied about having been
about
deployed.
About the deployment.
Yes, exactly. He denies it. He still digs in and, continues to lie, which, he's still lying.
One of the things you pointed out in the video on nytimes.com and on our page 2 feature that looks inside the Times is the challenge and the difficulty in reconciling whether you give someone like this publicity, whether you make him sound more sympathetic than he deserves to. On the other hand, should we be fulfilling our obligation as journalists to say what in fact is going on and who people like this are? So how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, it's a really difficult issue for sure, and I think that each story that we do about white supremacists or white nationalists, whatever you want to call them, should be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. But I think the simple answer is, something that journalists always do, which is check the facts. Don't take anything that anybody tells you at face value, and that's especially important when reporting on these guys who are known to sort of twist the truth.
But when we print or report or video and audio of hate speech, does that encourage it? Does that spread it even more? Or does that demonstrate what these people are all about?
That's a good question. I think what I tried to do in my piece was show that he has sanitized his language for the mainstream media. So when he's talking to me, he uses terms like white identity politics or white genocide, these things that make them sound sympathetic. But then I found these old podcasts that he had talked on where he was clearly just unabashedly racist and anti-Semitic. And I think juxtaposing those two ways of speaking is a way of exposing them and their deception.
And how does someone like this go from being as self-described anonymous Twitter troll into a leader of the alt-right, the far-right movement?
Yeah, I mean, that's a reason I was really interested in him, is that he had this steep rise based on, not much. But I think the answer is that it's not like there really are ranks in the alt-right. It's a very diffuse movement, and basically people who are committed and okay with coming out and risking everything in their regular life that they left behind are quickly embraced.
Fascinating video. You can see it in full on nytimes.com. Thanks to Emma Cott for joining us, lieutenant of the alt-right in its entirety, nytimes.com, and it does contain some pretty vile language and, of course, violence. The backstory is next. Stay with us. Welcome back. And given the week a mighty exhale, talk of treason by the president, a need for Dramamine if you're in the stock market, the Housing Authority again under fire for depriving its tenants of basic services, and a trial hitting close to home for the governor. Joining me to discuss these stories and more are my Times colleagues, contributing writer Eleanor Randolph, City Hall Bureau reporter William Newman, and Metro political correspondent Shane Goldbacher. Shane, you've been covering the Cuomo trial, a man who is closer to Andrew Cuomo and was to Mario Cuomo than most people. Testimony against him. One witness the other day was asked, "Are you an honest man?" To which he replied, "Today I am." Well, who do we believe?
I mean, this isn't just a witness. This is the star witness of the case for the government. Todd Howe, former lobbyist who's accused of, not accused, he has pled guilty to basically a bribery scheme involving, among others, Joe Percoco. And he has been delivering pretty damning testimony this week. The problem is he does have a long history as a liar, a crook, a person who didn't pay his bills. And so this week and early next week, the cross-examination is happening where the defense attorneys for Percoco and others are basically asking him repeatedly to describe the lies he's engaged in. The hope for the prosecution is his convincing them that he lied in the past, but he's not lying now under oath on the stand.
How do you do that? How do you, when you have a record of a liar, even if you may be lying for the first time, how do you persuade a jury or a judge that, hey, this time I'm telling the truth?
This is exactly what the prosecution did at the very beginning of questioning how they asked him about his lies. They made sure they were the ones to detail the lies, so the defense attorneys weren't the ones eliciting it. Up front, they said, look, this guy has a long, bad history, but you know what? He's telling the truth now, and we have emails, we have documents, and we have evidence to back up his case. He's filling in the details beyond this about the scheme, about the ZD that they were exchanging for cash in order to hire Joe Percoco's wife for a job and in order to get contracts for House clients.
ZD. But also, the other thing is that they can say, if he doesn't tell the truth this time, he has this agreement, that he won't be prosecuted, he won't be sent to jail forever and ever, and that agreement will go away. It will just completely disappear if he doesn't tell the truth this time.
The problem you have in these cases, though, is that it all hinges on the credibility of this guy, and in the Norman Seabrook trial, we saw that the whole thing collapsed around Jonah Rechnitz, who was exactly the same kind of thing, although younger, and so he'd been doing it for less time.
Willie, talking about anomalies like that, how do we get two people accused and admitting to giving money illegally to the mayor, the mayoral campaign, and the mayor being immune, in effect, from prosecution.
Well, it's fascinating, especially in the case of Harinder Singh, who was another donor to Mayor de Blasio, where he pled guilty to federal charges, specifically of fraud, but the charges involved bribery. And he pled guilty to using campaign contributions to bribe Mayor de Blasio. But the recipient of the bribe was not charged. And there's all sorts of possible reasons for that. One may be that Singh may have thought of his contribution as a bribe, but the mayor may have received it thinking, well, he's, you know, he sees me as the best candidate for the job.
So we have to examine intent.
But what we do know is that the mayor delivered, and what the federal court, what the prosecutor said is that the mayor delivered, and he delivered by he and his aides, in particular Emma Wolf, by arranging a negotiation over disputes that Singh had over his contract with the city for a restaurant lease that ultimately led to an offer of a better settlement than he had gotten previously.
Eleanor?
You have a very similar case in Long Island. I just wonder, and it involves Singh, and it involves the, you know, the county executive, and they're starting to say out there, why is it that our person got bribed and he's in trouble, but de Blasio was on the other end of a bribe?
Well, there's a big difference here. De Blasio didn't take money and put it in his own pocket.
Well,
de Blasio took campaign contributions, which are legal to give. The case in Long Island I'm less familiar with, but it's quite different in terms of the things that were received out there and the kinds of money that changed hands.
The big picture thing hanging over all of these cases is the Supreme Court case that changed the definition of public corruption. It made it far harder for prosecutors to get the politicians because now they have to prove a higher degree of corruption than they had previously.
They have to prove a real quid pro quo.
Yeah, before you could do honest services, that they didn't commit honest services for their constituents. That's not really an available prosecution anymore. It's made it much harder in all of these cases.
So it's like defining deviancy down. We no longer expect honest services, so it's harder to break that law.
Correct.
Let me ask you a quick question. In the gubernatorial campaign coming up, does it matter who runs for lieutenant governor?
No. And yes. I mean, no, I don't think it matters immensely to New Yorkers. Lieutenant governor has no discernible power in New York. But it's a fascinating political question. It speaks a lot to what Andrew Cuomo wants to do this year and beyond. If he does choose to run for president, the lieutenant governor will be the acting governor when he's out of state in Iowa and New Hampshire. If he wins the presidency, the lieutenant governor becomes governor. Cuomo today said that he was going to keep Kathy Hochul on the ticket, but there have been persistent chatter that he would like to move another direction and that the party would prefer her running for Congress in an otherwise hard seat up in the Buffalo area.
And that's an easy way to get her out of the picture, for sure, with grace. Thanks to Eleanor Randolph, William Newman, Shane Goldmacher for joining us, and I'll have some final words in a moment. In the late 1950s, each episode of an early virtual reality TV series would end with this memorable coda. There are 8 million stories in the naked city, and this has been one of them. Actually, at the time, there were only about 7.7 million New Yorkers. Today, there are nearly 1 million more. The question is, how many of them will be counted in the 2020 census? This is no abstract statistical stumper. It's not about bragging rights. The official count will ordain how billions of dollars in federal money are distributed. The 2020 population snapshot will also determine the city's political clout in Congress and the state legislature for the next decade. Population shifts to the south and west have shrunk the state's congressional delegation from 45 representatives in the early 1950s to only 27. While the city accounts for almost 99% of the state's population growth, it's underrepresented in the Albany legislature. Last time around, in 2010, city officials said the census missed tens of thousands of New Yorkers. This time, the officials are worried on 2 counts. One is a proposed question asking whether you're a citizen. The Justice Department claims that question is vital for enforcing voting rights legislation and bilingual regulations. Critics think otherwise, that the question will panic immigrants, legal and not, into refusing to respond. The foreign-born already feel vulnerable to government overreaching. And the last time a citizenship question was asked on the decennial survey in 1950, the Census Bureau itself found that foreigners were undercounted. About 3.2 million New Yorkers are foreign-born. Of those, maybe 500,000 lack proper documents and fear deportation. Many blended families are comprised of naturalized citizens, but also include relatives whose immigration status is arguable. Entire households may refuse to participate in the census to protect one member. Local officials also maintain that the Trump administration is deliberately shortchanging the Census Bureau budget to hamstring it from recruiting recalcitrant respondents. The city planning department has been reaching out to New Yorkers for months in 10 languages to help confirm addresses that the Census Bureau may have missed. It's already found as many as 100,000. Under the Constitution, everyone is supposed to be counted in this decennial snapshot, citizen or not. Of course, that's a Herculean task. Since the very first census was authorized here in 1790, when New York was the nation's capital, even George Washington and Thomas Jefferson complained of an undercount. But deliberate sabotage is something else. The Census Bureau must decide on the 2020 questionnaire within a few weeks. Mayor de Blasio has joined fellow mayors in denouncing the Trump administration's meddling. In next week's State of the City speech, he has an opportunity to create a national model for civic engagement to remind all New Yorkers that we can count. For the New York Times and CUNY TV, I'm Sam Roberts.